Today we're going to talk a little bit about the kingdom of heaven, which means we're going to talk about the King of heaven, Lord over all the earth. Amen? My parents are here today. Yep. They are why you have me. So either kick them when they're going by you or give them a hug, you know. So depending on how you feel about me being in your life. All right? Yeah, so don't kick them. I might get upset about that. But that was a joke. All right, Matthew chapter 13, starting in verse 24. All right, let's see if I can find 24. Wrong page, that's why. Right behind me, that's probably big. How about that Yost being 12 feet tall? Am I 12 feet tall right now? No. Thank you, Lord. Yeah. We've seen enough of me. Anyway, here we are, chapter 13, verse 24 of the book of Matthew. Start the clock, Tiff. Jesus presented another parable to them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went away. But when the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the tares became evident also. The slaves of the landowner came and said to him, 'Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares?' And he said to them, 'An enemy has done this.' The slaves said to him, 'Do you want us then to go and gather them up?' But he said, 'No. For while you are gathering up the tares, you may uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, first gather up the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them up. But gather the wheat into my barn.'" This should be very disturbing. Do you mean that everything that looks like wheat isn't wheat? Oh, first let's clear one thing up. What is a tare? Now, in the days of Jesus, in wheat fields, and I don't know today, but there was this weed that looks just like wheat. Until the heads appear. Then it doesn't look like wheat anymore. Only the wheat produces fruit. The tares don't. But while they're growing, coming to maturity, very hard to tell the difference. And then they mature, and these are evident, and these aren't. But by then, their roots are mixed, and to take one wrecks the other. Do you get it? I wish I'd have written down the name because I thought I'd memorize it, but if you've been around me, names are not my easiest memory. So I tried to remember the name of this weed, but I forgot it. Anyway, and it's very commonly known at the time. And when Jesus is telling this story, every person who's seen a wheat field knows exactly what he's talking about. And I wish I could tell you that people going out and sowing weeds amongst the wheat is an uncommon thing, but it wasn't an uncommon thing, and it isn't an uncommon thing. For people to try to come in and ruin something that's good, ruin something that is fruit, ruin something that sustains and has sustenance for you, that causes growth, that causes good things. I think that in today's world we have so many examples, and I'm not going to say the examples because that might tear us apart. That might tear weed with wheat. Are you following me? My opinion is that what Jesus is saying is this, and I'll get to the nuts and bolts. The kingdom of heaven is like, let's just start with that. There is a lot of talk about the kingdom of heaven. And I will tell you that most of that talk fails to discuss the King of heaven. If you live, like I had a friend at this conference who lives in a monarchy. I've got several people in my team that grew up in a monarchy. I did not grow up in a monarchy where they have kings and queens, royalty. And he's talking about a kingdom, a monarchy, a dictatorship, king of heaven. And when he says the kingdom of heaven, you cannot describe a kingdom aside from the king. If you read the history of England, you will see the history will tell you the kingdom was well under good kings, and it was oppressive or bad under bad kings. And the king determines the outcome of the kingdom. And when he says the kingdom of heaven is like, you can't talk about the kingdom of heaven without talking about the king of heaven. You can't ignore what the king of heaven is, who the king of heaven is, what he's like, if you want to talk about the kingdom of heaven. And he says the kingdom of heaven is like a man went out to sow some seed. The kingdom of heaven is like the one sowing seed. And he sowed, it says, good seed. In my ministry, I run across people who hate themselves because they were born in a good family. They were loved all their life. And they became bad seed. They became bad fruit. And I run across people who are angry because they were born to people that should have loved them, but didn't, and they became bad seed. And I think about it all the time, where there's no just straight road to hell. It's just all over the place. There are so many ways to destroy what God has sown in us, the life he has given us, the response to what happens to us. It's kind of interesting if you talk to people and you say, well, I'm working with these guys and I'm trying to help them through life and it's costing me all my money, all my time, all my energy. And this guy says, I just, throw them away. And you talk to him and you find out he's exactly like them. Well, they were born in unfair circumstances. So was I, and I didn't go that way. So was I, and I didn't steal from anybody. And I'm wondering, what's worse, their alcoholism, criminal life, their total destruction of self because they hate themselves, or his total destruction of himself because he hates them? Which one is worse? It's just many roads to the same hell. Many roads to the same outcome. And the kingdom of heaven is sowing good seed. And that's got to be the bottom line. What is the good seed? Well, there was the 10 Commandments, and there was the law of God, and there was the choosing of a nation to show God's grace as a father over that nation, as a king, as the God, one true God. And they kept doing it wrong. So he said in Isaiah, I will go and I will redeem them. Who will go for me? Well, I will go for me. And he comes himself and is born a baby, and we do the Christmas story, and then we do the Easter story. He dies for us and resurrects and conquers death for us. Now there the good seed will grow. And the enemy, the devil, comes along and sows bad seed amongst them. Will they be destroyed or won't they be destroyed? You would think since he did it different this time and he came along and gave them the answer, he put the way, the truth, and the life into the good seed, in the good soil. Remember, I haven't been here for a couple weeks, but he's been sowing good seed, right? He's just told you the sower, the parable of the sower, right? And you're the good soil. And in this one, you're the good seed. What's put into truth? What is it? You're not the good seed. The truth is the good seed. And he's put the truth in your life. And who comes along to distort the truth? Who comes along to put a little fog on the truth? Who comes along to teach you different? And I listen all the time, wondering, amongst us, why do we all believe so many different things when you accumulate all the teachings of Jesus, all the red letters in this book, it would be a very small pamphlet. How do you screw up that small amount of teaching? How do you get it to be misunderstood? How do you get people to all believe something different? I will tell you that since I concentrate on the small pamphlet part of this book, the red letters, I major on them and minor on the rest, which is a pretty thick book. I minor on that and major on the red letters. I really do. My whole life is based on them. I can tell you, they're not just a small pamphlet. They repeat themselves ridiculously, almost into a few pages. Listen, he just said it again. And then one day, when the harvest is ready, we will separate them. The sheep and the goats will be separated. The virgin bridesmaids with their lamps full and their lamps empty will be separated. Then, it's on and on and on. The guys that are given the talents are left to take care of their talents. And then there's a recompense. Paul the Apostle said, don't be deceived. Don't you know every single one of us will one day stand before the Lord and give answer for what we believe. There is a one day a-coming. Who believes that anymore? Everybody says, if you're saved, you're saved. It's a past tense thing. You can throw your oil out if you want. You're saved. Well, what about what's coming? Read the little pamphlet. Don't listen to the guys with the microphones. Don't even listen to me. Go read the little pamphlet. Go read the red letters. One day, the harvest is going to be decided. It could be that in this room there's a great amount of tares. Could be there's a bunch of wheat. We're not going to try to separate it. If we know you're the one sowing tares, we know if you're the one sowing tares, we're going to try to stop you from sowing tares in the church. We have a role around here of stopping harm. If you're harming others, you don't got to listen to this guy. Well, no, you don't. You got to listen to that guy. Right. The kingdom of heaven is like, and who's telling you that? What the kingdom of heaven is like. We're about to go into 5, 6, 7 in a row. The kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet. The kingdom of heaven is like a buried treasure. The kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking fine pearls. We're about to go into a whole bunch of the kingdom of heaven is like, and what he's trying to tell you is the king of heaven is like. Someone wants to get up and say, God's not mad at you. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Honestly. Whether he is or he isn't, there's a day a-coming. Any branch in me that does not bear good fruit will be, not was, will be cut off and thrown in a fire. And every branch that bears good fruit will be lifted up, aired out, watered, allowed to produce more fruit. Allowed to produce. There's an ongoing thing here. The theme is there's an ongoing thing. The kingdom of heaven is like a man. God is sowing good seed. That's what he's saying. The king of heaven is sowing good seed. What will come to you? Good seed or bad seed? Wheat or tares? Fruit bearing or non-fruit bearing? What is your great concern in life? You or bearing good fruit? What's in it for me? Well, read the end of the book. The little pamphlet includes a whole bunch in the end of the book. But the problem with red letters is they leave red marks. They sting a little sometimes. Anyone who seeks to win their own life will lose it, but anyone who gives up their own life for the sake of my kingdom will be rewarded. When? He said it. In this life, many times more than what you gave up. Right. In the age to come, eternal life. Good. There is a one a-coming. There is a day a-coming. Every parable says the same thing. And then one day he came and he said, return to me what I've given to you. Return to me the investment on your talents. And there has to be this understanding that I have a responsibility. How many days do you have left? Some of us have this many. Some of us have this many. The guy yesterday ran out of days. The man Mark, he ran out of days. How many days do you have? What's the investment of your days? Do you waste them in pouring out your oil, or do you waste them in using your oil? The truth is what he's sowing. He is sowing truth. I met a rocket scientist this week. I had to think, man, that guy he spent a lot of time becoming a rocket scientist. And guess what? If he stops learning, he will be obsolete by next month. You can't be a rocket scientist next month if you're not continuing to ingest the knowledge of rocket science. They're changing all the time. It's fast moving. Just think if you and I actually believed what he's saying, how much time we would put into making sure the truth is, we're learning the truth. It isn't changing. That's what's nice. It isn't changing, but there's so much fog. There's so much noise. There's so much confusion. The other day, I heard a guy speaking. He says, if you walk in a river here and you're in the middle of the river and you come out of the river and then you learn what you should have learned back there, you already know what you should have known, but you don't know. And I'm like, the whole crowd's going, that's good. That's good. Oh, so good. And they're taking a deep breath. But I'm like, what the heck did any of that mean? I have one thing to say. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever. Doesn't matter which side of the river you're on. Doesn't matter where you end up in life. You on the mountain, you in the valley. Jesus is the same. His words are the truth, loving the unlovable, feeding the least of these. I was hungry and you fed me not. Doesn't matter what side of the river you're on. Doesn't matter if you're drowning in the middle of the river, being swept by the current, or you're a strong swimmer beating the current. It's the same. I was naked and you didn't clothe me. I was a stranger and you didn't invite me in. How about them apples? It's a little tiny pamphlet. And some of you maybe think I repeat myself too much. But there's not a lot. It's a little simple truth. And all of a sudden we want to change him. He doesn't care about your sin. He throws liars in the lake of fire. That God doesn't care about your sin? He'll just forgive you, and then anything you do is okay. Where does it say that?
Come on.
The liars are growing right up amongst the truth tellers. If I find myself lying, which I recently did and was mortified that I would lie. Mortified. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't chase the guy down to correct it. I just lied. It'd been so long. Oh, I did exactly what the Bible said. I did exactly what the apostles told me to do. I repented, confessed, mourned. You understand? It's not up to me to pluck the weeds out. But if I got someone sowing weeds, it's up to me trying not to let them sow them. Here's what's really, this ought to surprise the crud out of you. Verse 25. God's men were asleep, and the devil came and sowed weeds among the wheat. What? God's people went to sleep. You and I don't go to sleep, do we? And I'm not talking about every night when we're in bed. I'm talking about asleep at the wheel. So busy we don't notice. And when the king's men were asleep is what it really says. It says slaves in this version, but when the king's people were asleep, the devil came and sowed tares. Well, I feel it's my job to keep my eyes open about wheat and weeds and fruit and no fruit. I think it's important to minimize. It seems like there's going to be some weeds. But I think it's our job to keep our eyes open. Try not to do things that cause people to trust in money, cause people not to trust in family or race or religion, to cause people to trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, to actually read his words. I just spent 4 days listening to people say every word on earth more than they said Jesus. I believe in Jesus. Quote every story in the Bible more than they quoted him. I think the red letters will keep you awake because they will encourage you. I mean, can you imagine joy unspeakable and full of glory? Can you imagine peace and rest beyond, what is it? What? Joy unspeakable and peace that passes understanding. Thank you. Peace that can't be understood. Why do I have this peace? There's all kinds of things going on in my life. Got people fighting for life in my life. Got people weeping behind me that it's my responsibility. You follow me? And yet I have joy. And yet I have peace. And yet I have drive to help people that can't help themselves. People that, for whatever reason, have been lied to. They either were raised in a great place and hate themselves because they let that down, or they were raised in a bad place and they're so angry at everybody because they had the misfortune of being raised there. Right. And either way, they're both going to end up being choked out by weeds if we can't get to them and take care of it with the truth. When on the stage, they called up Father's house. So we were all up there, 21 of us on the stage. And put the mic in Josh's face. It was just almost like roll the dice. Pick. What are you doing here? Well, my addiction brought me here. And why are you still here? Because Steve told me the truth and wouldn't let me live my lie. That really wasn't the answer they were looking for. That was the truth. Told them the hard stuff. I'm going to rat Josh out, okay? He came here thinking he was better than everybody else. He comes from money. I'm better than everybody else. Till some of these guys looked at him and said, you know what I would have paid to have a life like you had? How could you possibly have screwed it up this bad? I had nothing. That's why I screwed it up this bad. Of course, they're wrong too. But it's the same story no matter which way you go. You have a choice to make, and you screw this up or you screw this up. We weren't given affluence or poor. We weren't given loving parents or unloving parents. We were given life. And I get he has every right to go bad, and he has every right to go bad. He has every right to go good, and he has every right to do good. And what's going to help either one of them get out of the cycle? No matter how they got in the cycle. That's what we want. We don't want to be psychologists and try to figure out how everybody gets in the cycle. We want to figure out how to get them out of the cycle. And I got to tell you, let me repeat myself. There really is a very small amount of red letters. And what will get you out of the cycle is to have your foundation firmly on the teachings of Jesus Christ. He says it in every way you can possibly say it. My words will judge you. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. Anyone who hears these sayings of mine and lives them, acts upon them, has a rock under their feet. Good. Anyone who doesn't has sand under their feet. And then he says, when the wind and the waves, which we are all going to get wind and waves. I've had a ton of it lately. A ton of it. The ones on his sayings, stand. The ones not on his sayings, living by whatever other creed you want, from whatever other story you want to make important, you will fall. Right. Just like everybody else that lived on Solomon's words fell. Right. Dead serious. Apply Solomon's words through the red letters and you will be really powerful. Use them to stand on their own and you will be washed away. Right. I'm just going to tell you that's the way it is. It's the way he designed it. Right. Why don't we just listen to Jesus and see what happens? See if it works out. Give to every man that asks and see if it works out. Give to every man that asks and see if it works out. Forgive everybody. And I don't mean just, okay, I forgive everybody. I mean actually go through with it. Feel the pain. Feel the weight of it. And then say, I forgive you. I don't want you. And all that really means, let me just throw that in there, is I don't want you punished for what you did to me. Father, I ask you to release everyone that hurt me. And don't punish them. I'm okay. I'm okay. I got through. Father, you have taken what they did to me and made me stronger from it. I am who I am because they did it to me. For somehow you turned even that into good because I decided to love you and forgive as I have been forgiven. Give what has been given to me, trusting you to take care of me and not the world's financial ways. People come in all the time. I want to teach your people how to save their money and do this and build this portfolio. I said, man, get behind me, Satan. I can't have that. I'm trying to get them to give it all away and watch God provide for them and see their life be improved because they don't have money. I can line them up right here to get you to tell you testimonies of when they made $60 an hour, it destroyed their life. And when they quit that job, their life was made better and they've never been better off. I remember Devin Fiddler had never traveled anywhere outside of hell. And he gave his life to the Lord and started becoming generous. All of a sudden, he's on a cruise ship in the Pacific, and he's up in Washington seeing his brother. And I couldn't believe his testimony, just how many things had happened in his life that had never happened before once he decided to start giving it all away. Right. His world of just trying to grab nobody's ever given me anything. I got to get mine. Had him sleeping in the alley at Elgin Street when we met him. 18 years old and homeless with nobody. I don't remember where Jeremy was, but he was off in Washington somewhere. The only brother that he felt love for, gone from town. He's sleeping in an alleyway. And this is, I could tell you, they only got 7 more minutes, but I could tell you 100 more stories. That's the opposite. Right. Instead of trying to grab everything for you, try to give it all away. And see what happens when the wheat is one day. And it says here's the actual words are, in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers. What is this harvest? In Matthew 25, and in that day, my Father will gather all the nations of the world together and will divide them. What is this thing we believe? It's done. It's over. No matter what I do, it's okay. People are wearing robes with little white things on their collars. It means nothing. They're molesting children. They're molesting children. When it's divided, it'll be divided. They're stealing money from the offering. I remember how many times back in the 80s, some mega church guy would run off with all the church's money. Secretary would run, whoever had access to the money, run off with it. What did they gain? They won themselves hell? Oh no, it's over. They're already saved. It doesn't matter what they did. They're saved. Oh, wait a minute. All these kids that are molested are destroyed. Their families are destroyed. But when the master says, okay, bring in the harvest, that already happened? No, it's coming. Right. There's a day coming when I'm out of days. The young man last night, he's out of days. He will have no more decisions to make about the coming harvest. Right. Who he is, what he chose to believe about this book will be determined. I read the end of the book. There are scorpions. There's lakes of fire. Men will seek death and not find it. Egads, folks. There is glorious heaven, eternal life. And all we care about in America today is who has sex with who. That defines who you are really well. All we care about. It's the only subject left. Whether or not you're forced to have that baby or who you have sex with. I read Jesus' words and they don't talk about that much. Except righteousness and holiness and valuing what heaven has given you. He went out, and heaven is sowing good seeds. Here's how it started. The kingdom of heaven is like, which means the king of heaven is like. He's out there sowing good seed. Wouldn't you just love to have some good seed? Wouldn't you love to be good soil so that he would give you good seed and your life would produce good fruit and good things? I am reminded of the story of a skier in the backcountry who hit a root, went flying, and he's sliding on the ice because he didn't plan to be off his skis, and there was a cliff, and he went flying off the cliff. And while he's falling, he sees a branch sticking out of the cliff, and he grabs it, and he catches it, like in the movies. He jumped out of a helicopter and lived. I mean, there he is. It's a ridiculous story, but still, I remember the story. And he's hanging on this branch sticking out of the wall. And he looks down, and there's 2,000 feet of empty air underneath him. And he calls out, "Is anyone up there who can help me?" And a voice speaks from heaven. "I'm up here." "What do you want me to do?" "Let go." "Is there anybody else up there?" You know that's how we live. I don't want to do what you say. I just want everything you got for me. I don't want to do what you call me to do. Who cares whether I have oil in my lamp or not? Only those people that read what he said and saw that the ones that had no oil were locked out, and it said they'll never get in. Only those that actually heard the words weeping and gnashing of teeth are ever going to care about what he says. It matters what I do. And all you got to do is just read his words, and nobody else. Turn off the noise. Quit listening to all of the stories of whether you're on this side of the river, the middle of the river, or on that side. Who cares about the river? Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he said, "He who endures to the end will be saved." And when he says saved, what I'm saved from is hideous. What I'm saved to is glorious. I choose saved to. Now, there's life between now and then. What do I want for that? He says, in this life, a reward of many times more than you give. Okay, let's just take our giving. You give $1, I give $1,000. You lost $1, I lost $1,000. Cost you $1. Cost me $1,000. But what's the standard of what we're really talking about? Many times more. Which one do you want? You want to give the $1 but have my reward? Many times more than 1,000? Or do you want to give your $1 and have many times more than your $1? Let's multiply the $1 1,000 times. Let's say he says, I'll give you 1,000 times what you give. 1,000 times $1 is still only 1,000 of those dollars. It's not much more than that. It's 1,000 times the $1. 1,000 times the $1,000 is a much bigger reward. So we got this time to live. The sower sowed good seed. The harvest will be reaped. What do you want? I want my life blessed so I can give more, so I can receive more, so I can give more. You ever heard the story of the guy who said, you want $1 million today or a penny doubled every day for a month? You ever heard that story? All of you go home later and double a penny every day. First day you get 2 pennies. Second day you get 4 pennies. Third day you get 8 pennies, and do it 30 times. Which do you want more? I got this crappy little life that I was living. You might say, okay, give it. Get your many times more and give that. Get your many times more and get that. I saw a video the other day of a domino. Domino thing where you know the domino thing, you know what I'm talking about? Yes. Anybody not know what I'm talking about? You line up dominoes and you hit one and they go. People are always doing these incredible mosaics of dominoes falling, right? So this guy did the math and he said a domino can knock over something 1.5 times its size. So you put a domino next to it that's 1.5 times its size, and a domino next to that one 1.5 times. And he did it 17 times until this little flaky little domino this big was down there. And this one was about 5 feet tall and weighed a lot. And he says, watch this. And he hits this domino. And it goes until the last one hits it. It's just kind of slow, but it hits it. He said this was 17, but if you go 29 times, the last one would be the size of the Empire State Building. That is the effect. You've got time. You've got life. Some longer than others. Some of us are in our 60s, almost 90. Some of you are different ages. You got different times. Some of you will die young, and some of you will die even older than that. You've got time. You might only be the 5 centimeter domino right now. But if you just carry it out, what's the possibilities of in this life you will receive many times more what you gave? I don't have much to give. Well, you got to start somewhere. My life, take my life, Lord. Use me today. I'm the little 5 centimeter guy. Then when I get to be 1.5 times bigger, the reward is bigger. And I'm not talking about money in a vending machine. I am not saying God is a vending machine God. I'm telling you that he made a promise in the red letters that said, whatever you give, you'll receive in many times more in this life. And when you receive it, what I decided to do was give it. And when I received it, I decided give it. When I received that, it's like, let's give that. All the days of my life. I didn't start out good either. I started out bad. Very angry. Who knows how far it goes? Will it only be 17 times I get to reinvest what I was given? Or will it be 29 times? How many years do I get to do this? I hope a lot. I struggle to stay alive so that I can keep knocking down bigger dominoes. So I have an opportunity to present to him many crowns of glory. I read the end of the book. There's amazing rewards. And it ain't worth risking the amazing scorpions that sting forever and never stop. You can't escape them. Holy moly. There's scorpions, people. Lakes of fire, people. I don't know what you think of him, but he's the one that created them. And then there's this incredible blessing to be the wheat that produces good fruit, that when the harvest comes will be separated and valued and worthwhile. Every time, you chose to come to a church that preaches Jesus and him crucified. And he says difficult things like this. But it depends how you look at it. Is it difficult? Or is it good? It depends which one you might be. I want to be the good fruit. A million different stories about the good fruit, and a million different stories about the fruitless. I want to read the red letters. I want to balance this thing out. I want to understand. I want people to quit confusing me with stories about rivers. By the time you get here, you finally got the answer for over here, but you're not over here anymore. And it's like, what? He who overcomes to the end will be saved. I got a lot more to overcome in my life. If I could just stop today, maybe I have overcome, but the problem is tomorrow there's more things to overcome. More tests, more challenges, more calls, more things to wait for, more things to receive, more things to deal with. And I want to make sure that I'm dealing with them very simply. My favorite thing is to give things away, to watch what he does. And then when he blesses me, give that away. Use that. Spend that. Invest that. Are you with me? All right. I went over this morning. I don't normally do that. But you need to hear me what I'm saying. It is good.